All right, well, thank you, Brett. If there are no further questions, we will go ahead and move over to Dustin. Dustin Jordan is the SUE at the NWS in Jackson, Kentucky. He's here to talk about a showcase he did at the NWA titled A New Way to Engage and Inform NWS Meteorologists. So let me change it over here to Jordan. There you go, Jordan. I think I sent you the... Yep, there you go. Looks good.
Okay. You see my screen okay?
I do.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks for having me today to talk about a new way to engage and inform NWS meteorologists. I did this as a showcase, so this will be a fairly short presentation that I did with also in coordination with Brian out there in Omaha. So I'll go ahead and get started here. Get my screen right here. All right, there we go. So what I'm going to talk about is a little bit about, this is really going to be about social media. So I'm going to give it to you right up front. This is promoting operations, research to operations, and even operations to research. We'll talk a little bit about that. Using it as a useful training tool, and promotes adult learning concepts as well. And I'll give you a few summary examples there at the end as well. So again, social media has become a great avenue for engaging NWS meteorologists. And when I came into the Weather Service, we used social media in all kinds of different ways, right? We were using it to send out our weather stories now to engage our public and partners, send it out, as a dissemination source. We're also gathering information, right, from the public and partners to verify our warnings. But really, social media has become even a way that we can use it in kind of training and even research to operations and some of these concepts I want to talk about. So it's nearly effortlessly that we're being able to see research and transfer knowledge into operations. And using social media in real time as a training tool is becoming even more effective as well. And again, all of this kind of leads to this kind of micro learning concepts that we can use to, again, engage our forecasters, even in situations where we're dealing with maybe like real-time information. So how can we talk about promoting this concept from research to operations? Well, when we talk about research, we have researchers that are putting out their research in kind of early release format. They're able to do this effortlessly, really, without having to, maybe send emails or whatever the case is. So this is kind of a neat concept because we're able to actually more directly talk to these researchers. And the researchers are able to engage us more directly as meteorologists. So this leads to lots of cool things because now they can give us their research maybe in a more digestible form if we think about maybe doing like a Twitter thread per se. So you could talk about your research, in bite-sized forms where maybe your research might be a little bit daunting to some readers. Maybe this becomes a lot easier for the reader to understand. And then they can dive deeper into your research if the topic is something that they want to dive into. But it also allows us to come up with new ideas, bringing it into operations faster and quicker, but also maybe giving some, when we're talking about R2O, maybe we talk about O2R, operations to research. So maybe some of these topics and interactions we have in the social media world can end up leading to additional research topics that maybe somebody wants to discuss or talk about. And so all of this kind of came to culmination in terms of what I did this showcase on was me and Brian and the other SUEs we were at the SUE development course, and we were headed to talk to some emergency managers. And Brian kind of started polling us about something. About a research topic, and all of a sudden it made me think. It was like, wow, it's like I use social media, let's say like Twitter or whatever, to see some of these research topics too, and to pass them on to my staff, and also to maybe incorporate them into operations. And so I found this like whole thing to be very engaging because now here's here's me and Brian, we're using this concept to kind of bring these things into operations or bring them to the forefront of a bunch of SUs as well. So it's kind of this neat way that we can move the research much faster and promote it much quicker. Now, as far as fostering training, this is even a cool concept too, because what this does is we get real-time weather information now, right? We use that to verify our watch warnings and advisories all the time. But how about we use that flow of information kind of in a different way by interacting with our meteorologists, whether that be through a Facebook Messenger group like we have here at the office or a Google Space. A lot of offices use Google Spaces. And I think about this concept when we talk about fostering training using like a Google Space. Think about the RMA. What a great example of a way that we can learn together about all of these different real-time weather events that are going on in Central Region and even in other regions that are doing similar concepts. And so when you think about it, we can use these, and I can maybe throw out a picture of a tornado somewhere or throw out a picture of a radar signature that may be of interest to our meteorologist here. And so we can talk about the mesoanalysis, the radar, the model data, all of those things. And it just exposes forecasters to even more of these various elements over time, rather than waiting for it to hit us, right? So we can see all across the country now, and information is so available, and we can use these spaces. I've even seen some offices go as far as using something like a Google Meet and actually sharing information on the Google Meet, sharing live radar data, whatever it be through like GR Analyst or something like that. These are great concepts where we can sit there and learn together. And what this does is this promotes a positive culture of learning. We don't have to be, it could be a nice environment where we're not making the decisions there in operations, but we're able to just look at each part of what's going on in an event and be able to talk about it. Throughout your career, it could be, a more seasoned meteorologist talking about it to one of our, less senior meteorologists, one of our new mets that have just come in, talking about these concepts and being able to use this whole environment to be able to learn through. So what a neat way to kind of take all of these things that we're getting in real time weather that we've always thought about using for our, in conjunction with maybe being able to verify a warning or something like that. But now we're interacting and learning through this process of maybe like a Facebook group or a Google Meet as well. So great concept. And this comes back to kind of adult learning concepts too, and just how we learn. When we think about learning in bite-sized chunks of concepts of like micro learning concepts, this really fits the platform of kind of the micro blogging world, kind of like a Twitter or something like that. And so it might be a way that, like, for instance, like I was talking before, where you might have, maybe a more difficult concept that maybe you set up a Twitter thread or some sort of thread on Facebook or whatever platform you want to use, and be able to talk about these different concepts in more bite-sized chunks. And maybe the researcher can share that, or even I can in bite-sized chunks. And so all of this comes back to this idea of being able to use the social media platforms for good, for great interaction. And one of the things that I saw is that in research in 2013, 41% of college faculty actually use social media to teach. So why can't we use that to teach? Why should we be doing something different? And I have a feeling this number has gone up probably significantly, seeing that this research is around 9 to almost going on 10 years old. And so you can think that this research probably is a little, these numbers are probably much higher now, even as newer faculty come in. Now, we can't stop there. We're going to have to continue to look for new ways to apply this to the new generations of meteorologists. There's always new social media platforms, new ways we're engaging. But these are just some ways rather that we can engage the new generation of meteorologists coming on board. And, they can be involved in some of these conversations on these platforms too. And so it's really neat to see. So here in summary and some examples. So We have here the first one, kind of the idea of like research to operations. We have Cameron Nixon. Here's one way that he was able to talk about deviant tornado motion a lot. And now we have a vector available to NWS meteorologists to see and GR analysts. We think about Jamie, who knows so much about radar, and her and Evan, wrote a lot about dealing with side lobe contamination. Here she did a whole thread on just using this idea of kind of taking her research and being able to use it as kind of a training tool to talk about the things and the signatures that we see. Same thing with Brian here, my co-author here, using an example of side lobe contamination here to his staff in kind of a messenger or in kind of a Google environment type format, where he talked about, hey, here's a concept, here's how this, it could be an erroneous or could be maybe miswarned in something that you wouldn't want to warn on, right? And so these concepts can help, and if we can do this over time, right, we are going to learn these concepts over time, so giving you more ability to see some of this research to operations. Now, I will say one thing that I do here as well, because some may say, well, not everybody's on social media, not everybody's on these platforms, and that's fine, because occasionally I will send out emails to the staff. And I know you think, well, email's antiquated, right? But yeah, it can still drum up some conversation. It's still something that people are going to see, and it may be of interest to them, and maybe they want to do some sort of research on it. So I certainly don't want to leave out anybody who doesn't want to be necessarily on social media, and want to make sure that these concepts get shared, even to those that might not be on those platforms. So that's really all I have today. So really short talk, like I said, but if you have any questions, I can take them here, or you can always feel free to reach out to me.
All right, thank you, Dustin. Are there any questions for Dustin? All right, I'm not seeing any.
One thing I will say that at the conference, one thing to think about with this concept, especially like kind of the idea of real-time learning, is that with the as we start getting AWIPS in the cloud, and we start getting things like WES in the cloud, one of the things that was suggested to me by Dale Morris is like that's something you could use in these concepts. Like if you were in a Google Meet environment or something like that, you could start using some of these, and maybe even trying to do some warning operations like that in kind of more of a practice mode.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.